And Buddhism also has addressed that as long as you have desires, you will not have peace. You will not find peace because desires never end. And I've seen it in my life. My desires never end. And every person comes through that, If you climb this stair, you will have a desire to go higher. If you get this job, you will have a desire to go higher. If you have this income, you will have a desire to go higher. If you have this much power, you will have a desire to go higher. That in a lot of minds creates stress. Why do I say in a lot of minds? Because some people may still find happiness in that. So therefore, there was a shift in a number of religions towards monasticism, towards asceticism, giving up things, pleasures of life. And a lot of religions imbibe that, the fact that you fast and you give up one desire, and not only you give up one desire, you make your body and your mind understand the spirituality even of food. That if it is prevented from you, how do you feel? So Buddha himself practiced that, and he was, and all the images of the fasting, Buddha talk about that. That was his search about what the body needs, what does the mind need. Can you give up things in life and still be happy? So that struggle is on with all of you, with me also. And I am surprised by what I find in people. People who acquire wealth, and I have acquired wealth also, so I am not denigrating that. People who acquire wealth, and they keep on doing that. They never stop. It's an endless thing which doesn't stop. And the richer they are, the hungrier they are. They never stop. And somebody tells me, chalo, iske paas to bahut daulat aa gayi, chalo, ab isko chain pad jayega. It doesn't. In fact, it is, I don't know, in fact it is an addiction. If I were a doctor, for example, if I were a doctor, and somebody would come and tell me and complain about somebody and say he started eating breakfast in the morning, and this is lunch time and he's still eating. Or somebody who started eating at lunch and this is dinner time and is still eating. The doctor will say the person is sick. You see, his body doesn't need all that. So where does somebody draw a line? His body doesn't need all that. So if people acquire wealth and keep on acquiring wealth until they go down under, that is the kind of thing which Buddhism and Buddha preached more. So you curb your desires. Islam says the same thing, curb your desires. And if you curb your desires, then you may see other things in life. Humanity, love for people, understanding people, forgiveness. We are missing that. So we are a combination of emotions. And Buddhism has understood emotion very well. And the nirvana which is talked about is the fact that when you give up your desires, then you give up your desires, stress goes out of your family, reject what your body desires, bring it as a routine, something which you don't have to desire. It's just a part, like air, you keep on breathing air. It's a part of routine, it goes in the background. There's no search for air except when you are suffering from COVID. Then you understand the value of simple air. Imagine, and the world has learned that, but have we? We have learned that as a disease. We have not learned that as something which is a luxury and brings you back to humanity. So ladies and gentlemen, it is a very intriguing journey of my life. And that journey continues as long as I am alive. That journey continues, and Buddhism therefore is a very major part of it. And Pakistan has had, you see, the history of the Indus Valley civilization is anchored in Buddhism, is anchored in Hinduism, and a peaceful transition between Hinduism and Buddhism also. Mohenjo-daro, for example, both peaceful transition, and Buddhism gave way to Hinduism in some areas, and it was spread to Afghanistan, therefore the Bamiyan Buddha site. So this region was also at one time full of Buddhism, and we would like to preserve what we have, very important. It's a huge struggle always to preserve what we have, to try and restore some of the damage, at the same time not restore all the damage, to give the implication, to give the feeling to people that this is ancient history, to preserve some of the damage and to understand these huge civilizations which existed. If you go to Mohenjo-daro, for example, you will be surprised by the fact that 5,000 years ago, 7,000 years ago, there was a grid-like city, Mohenjo-daro. It was based on a grid. It was the houses were on the grid. There was no kachi abadi. There was no transgression on the thoroughfare. The water came from the Indus, went into every house, and the sewage went out in a very planned manner. 5,000 years ago. Imagine. And it gave way. It vanished. Why did it vanish? Only because the dependency of mankind with water was so important that as the river changed its course, the civilization moved away. Civilizations throughout history have been close to water, whether it's the Nile, whether it's the Euphrates, or whether it's the Danube, whether it's the Amazon, and whether it was the Indus Valley civilization. It was our heritage, it is our heritage. And today Pakistan is well placed to talk about peace, because what we see more than ever before, there is polarization between people. More than ever before, this religious anchorage towards peace and understanding of each other. We need an anchorage to give up wars, not to have humanitarian wars, not to have wars at all. It creates misery. And who is most affected? The woman and the children. Wars have always created misery. Crores, tens of millions have died in the last century. Tens of millions have died. And still, we still keep on. We have learned something else, that we don't want to stop wars, but we don't want peace either. We just want to have humanitarian wars. We won't solve the Kashmir issue, but we won't have a full-blown fight on it. So that's the kind of mentality which is progressing in the world. And I believe that going back to peaceful traditions is very important, not for you alone. I asked a question in the morning to the people, because I want you to understand this conflict in the human mind. And I asked a question and asked people to raise their hands. And I'll also ask you here. How many of you get angry? Imagine. The problem is here. We have to manage that. And that by itself is my question for your own reflection. Because anger is against a person. Anger is frustration. Anger leads to reflexes. And I quoted something else also. Those who get angry frequently, like my late father, Allah Ta'ala maghfirat kare, like my late father, he would tell me, and Samina is a good witness, he would tell me that when I get angry, I never say anything bad to anybody, and my anger is in my control, and I knew it was not. So ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here and to talk about peace. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
सादर डॉक्टर आरिफ अलवी इस्लामाबाद में अलाकवामी आर्ट फेस्टिवल कॉन्फ्रेंस से खिताब कर रहे थे। उन्होंने
अपना घर ही अपनी शान है। अपने घर आते ही जैसे